one of the first things that you started with was wanting to do a garden at every single school in Norman, which you've accomplished now, which is, I mean, it's an incredible feat. It's so cool to even get, I mean, for us, like I know Michael and I, we go to every single school pretty much. And then seeing it's like, oh, there's their garden, you know, like you get to see that. Love that moment. But environmentalism as a whole, especially attacking food, energy, and water, like those are huge goals. And so I wanted to ask, like, how do you know that you Earth Rebirth was making progress, hitting your goals, and then how did you keep going when times get really tough?
Yeah, so to bring it back to the kind of the garden goal, that was one of the big things. And again, Michael, I got to thank you again, just here in front of the Loveworks family, because not many people realize that Loveworks was our very first partner as an organization. At that point in early 2011, I was in a nonprofit class with 4 students, and we were meeting once a week for 3 hours. And as you said, our professor was like, hey, we're going to go to this pizza shop. We're going to hang out with 3 nonprofit leaders in town, and you're going to talk about nonprofits. And he shoved me and was like, talk about Earth Rebirth, tell them. And I shyishly gave you that pitch. And I will never forget you looking me square in the eye and saying, you want to garden with kids? You're going to come garden with our kids. Yeah. And that was our very first project. And so when it comes to the opportunities and really how you take that dive, you were that dive for us. And Loveworks gave us so many learning lessons. And that's one of the big values that Loveworks offers the kids too, is you guys are teaching kids not to wait on these projects or these ideas, but to take that dive. And, starting with Loveworks, we built that garden, and very clearly our thought process was, well, every school needs this. We live in an agriculture state, and we live in a state that has had struggling issues with our education systems, budgeting, or whatever it may be. And it seemed very clear that energy is a big complex issue. Water is a big community issue that you can't necessarily solve one by one. It's a very systematic thing. And food was an easier one on a simplistic level that we can do individually. People understand the value of food in Oklahoma, being an agriculture state, and we understand the importance of our kids getting healthy food. And so moving from Loveworks, the goal of getting every school in Norman a garden seemed like a very obvious one. And we thought it would take us 2 years. And so when it comes to the struggle, it didn't. It took us about 8. And, it's one of those things that we had to focus on the long-term initiative. It's very easy to sit in the beginning and talk about all these amazing goals you have. And then when you get into it, you assume that the goals just move forward. And it's not always just one step forward, no matter how slow or fast you think you're taking those steps. It's always 1 or 2 steps forward, 2 or 3 steps back, half a step sideways. Wherever you are, it's always a game of reacting. And I see so many more ideas start to have momentum and give up because of that lack of anticipation of it not being what you thought it would be, or not being embraced as quickly. And every school is different. The idea of setting up a garden at every school is great, but you can't just walk into every school and just drop a garden and expect them to succeed. That's not how they work. It's not how gardens work. It's not how schools work. And that was the big learning curve, and became that kind of stubborn challenge that, okay, well, every one of these has to succeed on their own, and then it can become this kind of garden network we had in mind.
It's powerful. Andrew, well, first, of course, thank you for acknowledging Loveworks. And there's so much to unpack with, what you just said. But I just want to just drop this here that, we're going back even to that first meeting. And any student that's watching this is going to be in a similar situation where they're going to have that first meeting. And when there's someone at the table, that has the opportunity to do something about the dream, sometimes it's not even necessarily the dream that gets the individual overly excited, but what they do is they first buy into the leader. And even before my first bite of pizza, I was already bought into you. I mean, you had given that pitch as if it seemed like you had already started 1,000 gardens across the state of Oklahoma. I will say this, a little side note. I do think that your first proposal was probably one of the largest proposals that we've ever received in our history.
Yeah, it was quite the doozy. We stayed up after that very first meeting till about 5 a.m, drawing up every detail of what this amazing garden at Loveworks was going to look like. And it was quite the Oasis plan we had.
It was the Oasis plan. We may not have actually, got to building like the garden, like on top of our roof. But behind our campus, we did eventually get there. But not only that, the opportunity that you gave our students that we were working with, rubbing shoulders with you, and that's what this is all about, is helping to be able to develop leaders and get them excited and passionate. And you definitely did that.